am super grateful about being able to sit down and talk with you today. I would say that the invitation that I got to your event a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't really sure what I was going to be walking into. However, I left feeling connected, feeling inspired, feeling empowered, and all of the above. So I'm super grateful that you have the time to sit down with me today to share a little bit of your story with the listeners. And so, without any further ado, I'm going to give you the mic. And if you would introduce yourself by telling us, of course, your name, where you're from, and what you stand for.
Oh, I love that. My name is Alicia Coulter. I am from South Central Los Angeles. I'm an LA native, and I intentionally say South Central because the gentrifiers call it South LA.
When
And
did that become a thing, girl? When did we start calling it something else?
I don't know, but it's annoying. I hate it.
Yeah.
And what do I stand for? I stand for safe spaces for Black women.
Mm. Can you tell us a little bit more about what safe spaces for Black women means to you and why is that the platform that you stand on?
So, safe spaces for Black women, what does that mean to me? Oh, it's so multifaceted because my belief system is that Black women are the mother of the earth, and yet we are not protected. Our well being is not managed. We are tagged with such horrible um, words as angry,
Mm,
abusive, so many different things that are just not positive. And so for me, safe spaces for Black women just means we are safe, we are comfortable, we are allowed to be in our own body and appreciated and loved and adored. That's what that means to me. And the reason why I am so hardcore on this mission is because for so many years in corporate America, I was not safe. I've been working
mm,
since I was 18 years old, and I I didn't know it was abuse, but I've been mistreated my entire career. And
mm,
so for me, it is, although we may not find a safe space within the workplace because corporate America is not made for us, at the very least, we can find a safe space in our personal space with our friends, our loved ones, our community, the community of Black women. We can find safe space within those communities. So, or within that community. So that's my why is I want Black women to really be protected. Back in the 80s, they would always talk about protect the Black woman,
mhm.
and that's gone by the wayside. Nobody's protecting us.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned back in the 80s that was the focus. And I know there's a infamous quote from Malcolm X that talks about Black women being the least protected, entity really on the planet. And I wonder, I'm a Gen Xer, 1977 baby, and I have seen the progression of, I guess, what we would call maybe Black feminism, women's empowerment, and this idea of women reclaiming their power and taking up space. I've also found with that, though, that it's somehow created this impression that because we are powerful and because we are capable, that we no longer need protection. So, will you share some of your thoughts on maybe what that progression has looked like for you personally as a Black woman when you were at that first job at 18 to where you are now?
Well, it's amazing because Black women, the feminist movement started with us, right? And then white women jumped on the bandwagon. And white women are allowed to be feminists and yet still, reside in their femininity. They can opt not to shave their underarms. They can opt to insert whatever activity you want to show that they are a feminist.
Mhm.
Yet their tears are still appreciated and adored.
Right.
When a Black woman is a feminist or shows that she would like to assert her power,
Hmm.
she wants to gather all these letters behind her name, then
Right.
she is okay to be in the world on her own,
Yep.
treat her however you choose to treat her. There's no issue because she is what? A strong Black woman.
Right.
And so I believe that it's the thought process of white supremacy allowing white women to have multiple roles, meaning their intersectionality is allowed. They're allowed to be a wife, a mother, a feminist, a friend. Whereas with Black women, we are strong Black women. Done.
That's it. Done. Right. Right. And putting us into that monolithic category, while on the outside, it seems like a really powerful label that we should be proud of and wear, with gratitude and like put on our capes and our crowns at the same time and feel like we can take on the world. And while that's important, I think it's also important for Black women and women in general, Black women in particular, to recognize that there's also strength in our vulnerability. And something that I experienced at the Safe Spaces for Black Women event that I attended just a couple of weeks ago was, even in a setting where there's panel speakers and there's vendors and there's great, amazing food, by the way, that there's still a level of comfort there and there's still a level of vulnerability there. And that was just, a couple hours that we spent together. So will you share a little more about what Safe Spaces for Black Women is doing for the community?
Oh my goodness. So after that event, a woman came up to me who works in this space of just community involvement and whatnot. And she said, I've never been to an event like this. And so for me, what I believe that the events are doing is showing Black women that we deserve more. We do not have to have events that center in Blackness that are not luxurious or as luxurious as the budget would allow.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can have spaces that provide beauty.
Right.
That smell good, because we had a vendor there that had candles and
delightful.
oil.
Yeah.
And I was like, can you light a candle in here, please? Thank you. And so that smell good, that look good, have great food, beautiful Black women, and get educated at the same time on how to protect us within a healthcare space that does not protect us.
Yeah.
Right. We can be multifaceted.
Yes,
I mean, goodness, ironically, Black women can be multifaceted and can appreciate those types of things. And so that's one thing that I truly believe that these spaces that I create are doing for not just Black women. Let me make that clear, because remember, I have luxury events and then I have my health equity community events. So with the those are what we're speaking of specifically, is the health equity events, but the luxury events, that's on a whole nother level, because you have all these Black women in the room. Most of them are degreed professionals. We have a lot of entrepreneurs. At this last event, we had an executive director for films. Like, we have some heavy hitters in this room, and everyone that's serving us does not look like us. And so they're seeing Black women in a side that they've never seen before at this level, in this capacity. It's like, wow, I hadn't even been at Nordstrom, and the people at Nordstrom are literally standing there watching. Now, of course, I'm like, now, this is not the zoo.
Right. We're not here to observe. It's not,
Exactly. You can marvel and walk on. Right. And so I told the staff, I was like, please make sure people do not meander and just stand here and look at us like we're just acts for them to watch. But nonetheless, they're seeing Black women in a way, they're like, well, I want to do that. I want to go there. And I was like, no, this is just for us.
This is just for
by us. This is a FUBU event.
Yes, FUBU event. Yeah.
Yes.
I have a son who's now an adult, and when he was little, one of his favorite movies was this movie called Robots. And there's a line that kind of goes throughout the movie, which is this idea of find a need, fill a need. And so when I think about organizations like yours and movements like yours, what was the biggest need or the lack, so to speak, that you were seeing within the Black women community that you felt you could fill with these types of events and these type of curated experiences?
Well, I felt that nice thing. So even if we're talking about on the health equity space or the luxury space, I felt that those types of events were curated only for a certain group.
Yeah.
So it would either price everyone out. So my luxury events, they're not cheap. The last one I had was $260 per person.
Okay.
Now, for some women, I would say most Black women, that's a nominal fee,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, but the health equity event was $30. That was just to secure your space.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to, you could just donate to the cause, which I would say 95% of the women did.
Right.
And so, what do I think I'm feeling? I think I'm feeling a void, meaning that women that do not have access
Right.
to being on top of the hill are still having the luxurious experiences that the women on top of the hill are getting. You know, the luxury event at Nordstrom in the restaurant, Joe Malone experience. We have a stylist that is sharing the different scents, how to pair them. We're serving a meal that's based off the scents, where we're having grilled octopus,
Oh,
scallops. Oh
wow.
yes, we're having these things, and the sparkling wine from
Okay.
Domaine Chandon is free flowing. You see what I'm saying?
I
So
love
although we
it.
don't, yeah. So, but then at the community events, they're at a church, right?
Oh,
So we know,
right.
and it's a health event, so I'm not going to have alcohol there.
Right.
But I have a mixologist crafting mocktails that are free
And
flowing.
and
I
they were
have the,
fantastic.
yes.
I can attest to that as well.
And then the chef, and then we have beautiful linen, and I still
Hmm.
have floral centerpieces, and I try to give you what I would want in
Yeah.
that space. And so I believe that's the need
Hmm.
that I'm meeting. It's allowing women that do not have access to the hill to
Yeah.
get what the hill is getting within their price point.
Absolutely. I think that's valuable too, because I would say like roughly the demographic, of women that were in the room were probably as young as what, 18, 19, and as old as
Mhm.
the women at my table, included my mom
Yes.
and my aunt and my god. So there was, the women that are well into their 60s. And there was so much information that was shared just by the panelists that you had at that particular event, information about women's health, mental health, physical health, all those things that often are not talked about. And if they are, it's at some huge seminar with hundreds of vendors and some information just kind of being thrown at you, but it doesn't really land and you don't really get a chance to talk and connect with the people who show up. And what I liked about the event that I experienced a couple weeks ago was that I left with people's phone numbers and email information and social media. So it really was an opportunity to connect and build a sense of community, which I think is something that's really valuable as Black women. Part of the strong Black woman trope is that we're doing it alone. We're doing it by ourselves. And we know that that's just not true and that's not sustainable. So, can you talk to me a little bit about what the value of community means for you, and
Yes.
how you go about creating community?
So, oh, I just got chills with just you explaining that and then asking that question, because there have been friendships that have been forged. Women
Mm-hmm.
text and call and go out to dinner and talk about renting their homes because they're looking for somewhere to live and they want a new place to live, and just
Yeah.
whatever boxes need to be checked are being checked
Mm-hmm.
within that space. So this community of women that coming together is so important, because Black people, that's what we're known for,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I grew up where I grew up. This was still when this community was still predominantly Black.
Yeah.
And so my neighbor across the street, she knows me. She
Mm-hmm.
knows my mom. She knows she knows how to get in contact with my mom if things aren't looking too right when my brother and I are doing whatever it is we're doing.
Right.
That level of community is so important within our space.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm building. That's what I'm trying to build. If you remember at the event, I'm like, who's at your table? I
Yeah.
always say that you do not know who's at your table. I know who's in the room, because when you fill out the questionnaire, I'm like, oh, okay.
Right.
Um, but you don't know who's in the room. You never know who's in the room. I have had women that are millionaires in my room,
Mm-hmm.
and people don't know because they don't go
Mm-hmm.
up and communicate with them. There are opportunities there for you, sis.
Right.
And so that's what why it's important to me
Agreed.
um to build this, when I wanted to do this, I just asked my hairstylist, I was like, girl, I want to have a brunch. What do you think? And she was like, just do it. And I was like,
Just
well,
do it.
what if no one comes? She
Do
was
it
like, girl, they're
anyway.
going to come. And the tickets sold out in like a week.
Yeah.
And then just those relationships. And then when those women saw each other again, they were like, hey, girl. And it's hugs and it's loving on one another. It's, oh, you look good. Or a woman comes into my brunch, if she's late, I might be silly with her for a sec, but I'll say, oh, what your outfit is cute. You know what I'm saying? So, it's just that sisterhood, that love. You don't have to be in a sorority to have a sisterhood. And this is truly a sisterhood.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I agree. I think my sister, shout out to Keola, she posted it on Instagram and called in the women, some of the women in my family, and we were like, we're there. Those of us who couldn't be there, I think might have still donated or something along those lines. And the big reason I think we were attracted to it is because last year we intentionally decided to put together a mastermind group. And the intention of the mastermind group is really to do exactly what you just said, to support each other, whether it's our businesses or programs or family or relationships or finance or whatever it is that we're needing, so that no one feels like they're left behind. So no one feels like they have to go at it alone. Because I think that during the pandemic, one of the biggest challenges, in addition to financial challenges and health, of course, was the sense of isolation and that sense of disconnection that people experience. So then when we could go outside again, it was finally a chance for us to say, there's more of us. Okay, we're still here. We're still taking up space. And what I like about what you've created with Safe Spaces for Black Women is that even just the name, the feeling of like, oh, this is a safe space. Okay, I can be my whole self. Okay, I don't have to wear the mask. I can take off some of my armor. I can show up in this room and know that I'm going to be seen, that I'm going to be understood, that I'm going to be respected. And there's something so valuable about that. And my hope is that the work that you're doing and the movement really that you're creating will continue to carry over to the next generation of Black women. And I know that you are a mom and you have some daughters. So what are your daughters thinking about the work that you're doing? How is your family responding to this?
So I have 3 daughters. One is 20. She'll be 21 in January. I don't know how that happened.
We're at
And
the
then I
time,
have
right?
I know, for her, because I have not aged much.
Ma'am, okay.
Listen. And then a 19-year-old and then a 17-year-old.
Okay.
And so it's so funny because I just feel like they tell me like, oh, mom, we're proud of you. But I think it's more like, it's mom. They appreciate the spaces. They have a good time. I have them work for me at every event. I do pay them, and I pay them over minimum wage per hour. Just because they're your kids doesn't mean that you do not pay them for the work that they do. I just want to throw that out there
Just for the record,
free.
right?
So, but they, they're proud of me. They're not over here like gawking, but they do understand the need, because my youngest predominantly, and it's ironic, she's my chocolate baby. She gets from my husband is chocolate. My chocolate baby, who is the one that has had the best grades, that is the most active positively on campus, has been put in unsafe spaces at school, mistreated by teachers, mistreated by security guard. And so, most recently, the Title I coordinator at her school was talking about me in front of her. So yes. And so it's right. And I'm smiling, but I want everyone to know that I am a gangster when it comes to my kids. So it was
all
it
bets
was
are
not
off.
it was not pretty. And so basically they know the need, especially her.
Yeah.
And so she works for me the most. And she wants to work for me when she graduates from college. So they get the need, they get what I'm doing. I just think this generation does not like pass out like, oh my God, was like, it's my mom,
Yeah, they're
it's
like,
chill,
this is what she does.
yeah,
Like,
it's
it's
my
like,
mom.
would
Yeah,
you expect anything less?
yeah.
That's,
That's it. It's like, it's her.
yeah.
She's good.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. Having the support, I mean, of course, we want our children to carve out their own path and move their own direction. And it also does feel good to see that they're just like, "Oh, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
I respect the hustle. I'm proud of you." That's always a good feeling, I would say, for a parent to be able to get that kind of feedback from their kids. So
Hmm.
I'm glad.
Yes.
Before creating safe spaces for Black women, what was, if you could tell us a little bit about your journey to arriving at this point where you said, this is what I need to do. This is how I need to show up. What did that look like for you?
Oh my gosh. It's so funny you asked me that because I was really sitting back like, when did I decide to do this? Because I am a consummate entrepreneur. I always have these ideas. My brain does not shut off. But I know when I started creating the brunches,
Mm-hmm.
I said, I have to do more. There has to be more than just the brunches. Um, because of my workplace experience is plural.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was like, it has to be more than just the brunches. And so I sat back and I was like, I want to write a book. And then once I came up with the title for the book, I rebranded our nonprofit and our for-profit. I rebranded them, changed everything up, and I started a project called Save Black Women's Lives. And the focus was centered in um, maternal mortality.
Okay.
That was the number one focus. And so then as time went on, I was like, it's got to be more than maternal mortality because
Mm.
Black women are dying in healthcare,
Yeah.
period.
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 Yeah.
And it's just we focus in on the maternal because it's like, dang, pregnant woman and a baby, they are the two most vulnerable people on the planet.
Yep.
Right. So
Yep.
um it's like, okay, so maybe I need to expand. And then that's when I said, I want to start having the same type of brunch that I
Mm-hmm.
have for the luxury events. I want to mimic it as much as possible
Mm.
for the health equity space.
Okay.
And that's where I started shopping this around to different um, funders.
Mm-hmm.
And I trademarked Safe Spaces for Black Women and then started running with it. And here we are. So it
Here we
just came
are.
from just literally, it was truly an evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just if I were to think of the steps, it's like, okay, I did this,
Mm-hmm.
I did that. Like, it was more or less a lot of pivoting,
Yep.
a lot of figuring things out, a lot of erasing and starting over again. But then this came to be. And then one of my friends was telling me, like, you should just focus in on that because it's such a winning formula.
Yeah.
And I was like, bet I will. I
And I'm glad
will.
you did. I'm glad you did. And I think that some of the best ideas that we come up with come from our lived experiences. Had you not been in corporate America, had you not had those unfortunately negative experiences in corporate America, or just walking in the world as a Black woman and experiencing those types of things, who knows if this ever would have come to be. So you mentioned something that we are going to go back to. You mentioned a book, and I know that you recently launched. Is this your first published book, or are there several that came
Yes.
before this?
No, this is my first one. But really quick before we do that,
Go ahead. Yeah.
I want to I want to tell you you're right about my experiences. And I always shout out my husband because like he is my biggest cheerleader. And if anyone has been to
Mm.
anything that I do, you see him.
Yay,
Like
husband.
literally. Yes. And so I mean, we love a Black man that want to take care of a Black woman, right?
Yes, we do.
And so but I remember when I was going through all my experiences, he would
Mm.
always tell me, it's going to benefit you. I promise. Like you're not going, because our belief system is in God. So he said, God's not going to have you go through this if something isn't to come from it. But of course, you're going through it. You're fighting the air. You're like, shut up. I don't want to hear about that. Like,
right.
I want to get out of this this pig pen. That's how I felt. I felt like I was in a pig pen. And I just want to get out of it. And so I just wanted to really, one, piggyback off what you're saying, because somebody that's listening or watching this is going to be encouraged by that. Like, whatever you're going through it.
Right.
And you will come out of it. But just don't forget what you went through, so that, one, we don't repeat the same air quotes mistake, or we don't make the same decisions. And two, you don't know how much it'll benefit you emotionally, mentally, financially. Insert the word. Just don't give up. That's just, because I can't tell you the number of times I would literally lay in the bed crying, just sobbing, or in the shower, because of my experiences, the pain and the hurt that individuals put on me, simply because I'm a Black woman, because no one else in my department was dealing with it.
Right.
So I just want to encourage someone that it's going to get better. Like, because that is just so important.
Yeah, it is.
That is so important.
Yeah, it is. I appreciate that encouragement. And I would echo that. My journey to entrepreneurship started with adverse experiences in corporate America as well. My first job was when I was 15, and, working in a family business, and then college, and then entered corporate America in my early 20s, and was living in the South at the time as well. And so being in environments where I was the only one who looked like me, and I was often the youngest one in those spaces, and just the microaggressions and the overt aggressions in some cases, and to the point where I said, I can't do this anymore. I have to find another way. And that led me in the direction of the healing space and the wellness space. And it's been almost 12 years now that I've been in this side of the conversation. And what I've found is Black women often have to be reminded of the value of rest and restoration, and what we now call, self-care and things like that. And sometimes when we think of our health, we often overlook our mental health. And so having experiences with depression and anxiety and just lack of motivation or feeling overwhelmed, having a support system like your lovely husband or family members or siblings or things like that, people who can help hold space for you, I think that they see sometimes what we don't quite see in ourselves. And so they can serve as that springboard to kind of get us back in the game when we want to quit. So shout out to your husband for being that support for you, because
for sure,
we need you doing this work. We definitely need you doing this for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I want to talk about the book. And I say this as a fellow, well, in this case, I'm a self-published author. My first book came out in 2017, and it started off as an instructional guide, and I inserted some, anecdotes about my personal life in there, and was like, oh, I'm done. I don't ever want to do that again. But there's still more in me to share. So will you share a little bit about what the writing process looked like for you, and then share a little bit more about what we can expect to find in your book?
So, true story, funny story. I was literally laying in my bed, and I text a friend who coaches individuals that are working on their dissertation.
Okay.
And I said, I want to write a book.
Okay.
Just like that.
I want to write a book. That's it. That's all I gotta say, right?
So then she starts drilling me. Well, what do you want to write about? I said, Black women in corporate America. And she was like, there you go. Well, what about that? I said, well, we can massage what that's going to look like, but I know I want that to be the foundational topic. And so she was like, well, I can refer you to a book coach. I was like, no, I want you. And she's like, well, I've never coached anyone on writing a book. And I was like, girl, I have a published thesis. Theses and dissertations are books. They sit in the library of the university. You have coached people on writing books, girl.
Yes, ma'am.
And And, I'm not trying to write like a passion novel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing a book filled with research. That's what
Yeah.
I want to do. And so she was like, okay, let's set up a meeting. Now, like I told you, I have these harebrained ideas. And so she
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, when do you want the book out? Now, mind you, this was back in like, I want to say, okay, hold on. I can tell you when it was. It was like March. No, it was February. It was January, February. I said, oh, the book has to be out by October. She said, excuse me.
It's like, pardon me.
I said, yeah,
How much
the
of
book
it have
has
you
to,
already written? Right. So
not even, I've written one word,
right.
A. That's it. One letter,
One letter,
A.
right.
And so she was like, okay, let's meet next week. I said, okay. So then she shows me the timeline. I was like, oh, snap, me and my harebrained ideas. So
Yeah.
I literally, I am self-diagnosed with ADHD. So when I self-diagnosed, okay, no real diagnosis, but
Okay.
if you tell me that something is due next week, oh, I'm starting it next week. And if it's due on Monday, I'll start it on Friday. You know what
Okay.
I'm
I was gonna
saying?
say, or Monday morning,
Yeah,
depending on.
exactly. It's the last minute crew over here.
Hmm.
So um she would message me like, have you started working on this? I don't see anything. I'm like, chill, it's gonna get done. And
Hmm.
then I would just throw up on paper. And she was like, oh my God, Alicia, this is so good. Like this this is going to help someone, because she's like, there's no other book like this out on the market. I've done my market research. There's
Hmm.
nothing else out here like yours. And so the process took me, I would say, from start to finish about 2.5, maybe 3 months,
Okay.
because I had to be done by May.
Okay.
She was like, I don't care what you do, by May, you have to be done with all of your writing
All right.
so they can go to editing and
Yep.
be ready to publish in October. And you want to give time for the books to be printed for
Right.
my second annual Relax, Release, and Restore brunch. That was the first brunch that I started back in October of 22.
Okay.
So she said, are you ready? And I said, oh yeah. Not knowing what that
Sure.
would look like. So then I would write. I mean, I'd wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and write. I'd
Mhm.
go to bed at midnight and write. I mean, and then I'm from writing all day. I would mostly write on the weekends because I run two organizations. So
Mhm.
I had to do the jobs that pay me,
Right.
right? Writing does not pay you. So it's the
Yeah.
fruit that from the writing that you hope will pay you.
Hmm.
And so yeah, so that's my process. I mean, I'm probably do anyone that's listening to this, do not do what I did. Like I
This
want to
is not a
encourage,
recommended writing
no,
process.
this is not at all. Give yourself some time.
Hmm.
Um, just so that you can collect your thoughts, because I feel that my book could have probably, no, it probably wouldn't have been. It would have been this. I'm just a critic, harsh critic on myself. So I'm not going to even go down that rabbit hole, but I
Yeah.
will say this. Um, it will minimize your stress level if you do not start at the last minute. But yeah, that was my process. It was just like, you got 2.5 months, get her done.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
every writer has a different process. Every author, I should say, also has a different process. Mine, similar to yours, I started with the end in mind. So I started off with a deadline. I wanted to publish the book by the time I turned 40, like, or within, that time frame. And I'd known that I wanted to write it. I had not hired a coach. So I definitely would do that next time, just for accountability. And I read this one particular book, and the author of the book shared a little bit of her writing process. And she mentioned this tactic or this method of anytime a good idea came through, to write it on an index card and then just toss it in a box or in an envelope or something. And then when it was time to sit down for my writing time, and I tried the scheduled method of, I'm going to write on these days for this time. That did not work the way that I planned, because the creative burst came through differently. But I did use the method of the index cards. And so I would write down like a thought or an idea or a word sometimes that I know would spark something, tossed it into a manila envelope, and I still have the envelope. And when I sat down in my writing times, I'd pull out the index card and just freestyle whatever came out of me on that. And then later go and insert some research or other supporting information for that. But I would say to those who are listening, if you are thinking about writing a book, I strongly recommend hiring a coach like you did, or somebody that you trust, and giving yourself a deadline, I think, is valuable. Now, maybe not waiting till the last minute to write it, but if that's your jam, do your thing. But giving myself a deadline was important because I knew that I had already put it off for so long. I had already said later, later, later to that book several times. And once it was out, it was out. So I have a now that it's out. It's been a couple of weeks that it's out. Tell us how it's doing, how it's being received, any feedback that you've gotten about your book.
So yeah, so it's been out for 2 weeks, actually pretty much 2 weeks, day before yesterday.
That's what I thought, like almost to the
And
day.
yeah, and so the first day it was on Barnes and Noble. And so that's where I pushed all my traffic to, because I'm trying to get in their store. So I want them to see that people are buying my book. And I ended up with a green bestseller ribbon. I don't know in what category. I don't know. I didn't care. I just had that ribbon and add that ribbon to my checklist, right? I could have sold 2 books and made bestseller. Thank you.
I'll take it.
I'll take it. And so, but it's doing good. I have sold over, well, the data is always slow.
Okay.
It moves really slow. I've sold over 150 copies in Barnes and Noble. I was really surprised on their website. I was so surprised. And I'll be honest with you, I was not like over the moon, but my brand manager, Brittany, was like, girl, some people don't sell 1 book.
Ma'am, especially in the first 10 days. That's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I have that. And at one point on Amazon, I was in top 100 for women in business.
Wow.
So I was really excited about that. Let's see, it's just doing good. Like, I'm getting great reviews. I want to read a review that I got from my
let's hear it.
From one of my friends. So this friend she is an academician, like PhD level, top respected across the country, research, phenomenal. She gets funded by the NIH and the CDC. So this is a woman that writes for a living. Okay. So when she said she was getting my book, I was like, oh snap. Right. So this is the text she sent. She said, girl, so you know that means is you, a whole bunch of R's, whole bunch of
right.
I said I was going to sit down for a little bit and start reading your book, but I finished the whole, she said another word, but I'm not gonna say it, dang thing. Loved it. It's everything it said it was. Great job. I learned so much. Definitely finding my V, which is the methodology that I created for this book, which is validation, encouragement, and elevation. I have so many questions, thoughts, and discussion points. And then she says she liked her cameo because she is in my book. So, but not her name, but she just knew based off the story that I told. And so, so that's what she sent me. So that gave me chills because you just don't know how people will receive your work. And I told her later on in text, I said, I feel like Erykah Badu, keep in mind I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my stuff.
Exactly.
Period. Exactly. Yes. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I don't know what y'all gonna say. So I was nervous. I like the book. I think the book is pretty legit.
Exactly.
But I'm on the cover. But I also wouldn't pump out something that was trash because that's not me.
Right.
Like, that's just not who I am. And professionally, academically, I don't like putting forth anything that's not legit. I was interviewed for a digital magazine once, and they asked me, what do you think is the best advice you can give to someone in business? And I said, you want to do what your client asks you to do first, and then you go above and beyond.
Yeah.
Don't go above and beyond and not finish the task at hand.
That's right.
And so for my book, I feel like I know that I wanted to complete the task, which is
Mm-hmm.
write a book, safe space for Black women, to validate, encourage, and elevate Black women professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next level is making sure the book gets out there.
That
You know what I'm saying?
that part.
That's the above and beyond, because I
That's
could
above
write
and
all
beyond.
day.
Yeah,
That's
complete the
the above
task,
and
and
beyond.
that's right. Yeah.
Above and beyond. So that's how I saw that.
I heard that. I heard that.
Yeah.
So for people who want to know the title of your book and where they can find it, where should we
Yes.
send them?
So the title of my book is Safe Spaces for Black Women. And you can find it so many places. Like I found my book on, they said my book is on 40,000, is within 40,000 retailers.
Oh wow. Okay, so no excuses, people. Lots of places to find the book.
Yeah, so I always say Barnes and Noble, Amazon, because it's print on demand, it still takes a little time to get to you because I'm still new. Once
Sure.
they see the traffic, then you'll start having the next day prime or the 2-day prime.
Okay.
But yeah, so I know people like to use Amazon because of free shipping. So I
Hey,
always say, yeah, go to
I mean, there's an
Amazon.
option, but Barnes and Noble, y'all can pay the five
Yes,
dollars for the shipping if you need to,
yes.
so
And
you
I
can get
hope,
another green ribbon.
yes. And the thing is, I always tell people, I don't make any money off this book. I'm very transparent
Mm-hmm.
because the interior of the book, and I will show you, has it has pictures in it with
Oh,
quotes. So I
wow.
had to print the book as a full color.
Yeah.
I mean, even like I don't think it's gonna pick it up, but each section is housed within 2 lines that are pink. So literally, this is a
Oh,
full. The book is very feminine. I'll just be honest with you. It's
that's
very
fine.
feminine.
That's
And
fine.
and there are journal prompts in here, and the lines in the journal prompts are all pink. So it's just, and there's quotes. Like, even though you see my pictures of my face, there's a quote and it with each picture. And the goal is for you all, or those that see the book, to
Mm-hmm.
see. I mean, I would love to have shared pictures so you can see my transition, but I don't want my full transition in print. But I want you to see the joy in my spirit that I
Yeah,
have because I have found my safe space. Like
I
that's
love that.
that's the true, the effervescence that I want to come across from putting
Mm-hmm.
these pictures in here. I mean, I look at myself all day. I didn't put these pictures in here to look at me. I put
Right,
these pictures and things in here because I want you to see the effervescence of who I am and to see the type of spaces that I create
right.
um, for Black women. But yeah, this book. So I was gonna say, the reason why I said that is I
Mm-hmm.
make all hard copies. I make like 29 cents of the
Okay.
hardback hard copy, and the paperback I make like $2. So I want
Okay.
people to know I'm not over here balling out of control off of book
Right.
sales, right? And so that's not why I'm pushing the book. I'm pushing the book literally because it's good, and I hope that it puts you in a position to really understand where you are professionally,
Mm-hmm.
and then what you can do. And I say can because I can't say need, what you
Yeah.
can do to find your safe space. One of the ladies that was a beta reader, on the back of the book, I have her review, and she says, I didn't know I was abused in the workplace until I read the book. I have been in an
Mm.
abusive relationship with my job. I've gone through so much.
Mm.
Like,
Wow.
she's a technical engineer, so
Mm-hmm.
what space she's residing in professionally. It's a good old boy space. So it's just,
Yeah.
it for me, it's not about the money. It's about
Mm-hmm.
getting it in the right hands so that I can be on your podcast, so I can be on other podcasts. I have speaking engagements lined up.
Mm-hmm.
I have private book clubs lined up. So it's just like, I'm hosting a book club for the ladies that have the book and that are on my email list. I sent out an email saying, if you want to
Mm-hmm.
come, even if you haven't finished the book, just come,
Yep. Just
and I'm going
come.
to
Right.
answer questions. I'm going to share information about my thought process when I wrote that, or, when I said what I said, like when I
Mm-hmm.
talk about Karens and the YTs, because that's how I
Mm-hmm.
reference the white women.
Mm-hmm.
And that we'll have that type of conversation. But
Yeah.
for me, it's just, I could go on and on about this, but I hope people can hear and see like my passion. Like, this is
Yeah.
not a game for me. And oh God, I want to start crying. I tell people that all the time. This is very serious for me.
Mm. Yeah. It's it's like you said, it's not about the money. Book sales are great, but it sounds like what you've put together is a resource tool for women to be able to utilize, to come back to several times when they have to navigate difficult situations. There's journaling prompts, there's of affirmations, there's so much in there
Yes.
that it ends up being a desk reference is what I call books like that, something that I
Yes.
constantly go back to and pull from and need to be reminded of sometimes flipping to a page or reading a segment and saying, okay, I got what I needed from this today. That's a good book. That's a powerful tool. And I'm so
Yeah.
grateful that you
Thank you.
shared that with us and that you put yourself out there in that way, because the work that we do that brings that emotion to the surface, I should say, that's how we know that we're standing in our purpose. That's how we know that we're doing God's work, so to speak. That's how we know, like, oh, I'm being spirit led. This is where I'm supposed to
Oh,
be, and doors
yes.
are going to keep opening and opportunities are going to keep showing up, and you're going to become the household name that I know that you're meant to be. I'm grateful that you said yes to being a part of this conversation. We're going to switch gears a little bit. This
Okay.
coming to the
Yes,
end
Locking.
of our time together. I have a couple of things that I like to do at the end of each podcast, and one of them I call complete the sentence. I have a couple of sentence prompts. I'm going to throw them out at you, and then you get to complete the sentence however you'd like. You can take up as much or as little space as you'd like with your answers. The
Okay.
first is, I know I'm happiest when.
When I'm with my family
Mm,
and away from here, in
mhm.
Napa with a glass of wine and just looking at the
Okay,
beautiful terrain, that's like everything to me.
I love that. That's good. I know I've made an impact when.
When a woman tells me I saved her life, a Black woman literally told me that at my event in October. She told me I saved her life, and I was like, what
Mm,
are you talking about? She was like, no, girl, you saved my life. And she's one of the first people to buy a ticket. Um, when, and just to add to that,
mhm,
when um, women tell me it's a safe spaces for Black women is a necessity. And they're talking about my events, my book, just being in the space with other Black women.
mhm.
When they tell me that it's a necessity, that's not a nicety, a necessity. That's how we reference air,
Yeah.
water that I'm drinking, food, my family,
Mhm.
but to say this is a necessity, it's like that's truly the to whom much is given, much is required personified.
That's right. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. It is a necessity. It is a necessity. And I
Yeah.
think that's why you answering the call and stepping into this role as a leader, as a facilitator, a space holder, a healer, all those things is so important, because without it, we know what happens when we don't have safe spaces. And so that's
Yeah.
just a reminder of how important it is. The last sentence is something most people don't know about me.
Yes. Let me think. I'm like a real open book, but I
Mhm.
would
Like
say,
literally an open book.
yeah, um, I would say that I am a class A nerd. Like I
Yeah.
am a consummate learner. I like statistics, not like doing the class. No.
Right.
Been there, done that.
Right.
And if I will not share how I passed it. It wasn't even
Okay.
that.
We will not disclose.
Um, but I like statistics. I like being able to quote stats.
Mm,
I Yeah, and I wasn't always like that.
mm,
I was in high school. Another thing on top of that is when I was in high school, I was not an overachiever.
okay.
Like I was like that 2.4 student.
Mm,
So for those teachers that are listening to that, respect your 2.4 students because you never know
you
where
never
they're
know.
going,
That's
you
right.
know.
Don't overlook them too. Don't
Yes.
overlook any of your students if you're a teacher,
No,
I hope. But yes, definitely
period.
don't
But
overlook.
they're just like, oh, pat on the head, like, oh, we just want to pass you on. And it's,
Mm-mm.
yeah, and I wanted to go to UCLA in high school.
Okay.
And back when affirmative action was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have the grades because back then, as long as you had a 3.0, no matter what your SAT scores were,
Okay.
you were going to get in because UCLA was not the power. I mean, it was a powerhouse, but not the powerhouse it is
It is
today.
today. Right.
And I blew it. I
Mm.
blew it, man. I blew it just being dumb.
Mm.
What's his name? Khalil song, Young, Dumb, and Broke. Just being
Yes.
young, dumb, and broke.
Right.
And then fast forward, I graduated my master's in public health from UCLA. So that was major, like
That's right.
major for me. And
That's right.
I'm speaking there this weekend.
That's what I'm talking
Talk
about.
about,
Full
girl,
circle
I'm gonna
moment.
have to cry
I'm
today, tomorrow. I'm gonna have to cry every day, so I'm not up there
crying on the
crying.
stage. Get it all out before.
Yes. Um, so many that I would say that's the thing. Like I'm a nerd and I'm doing these things now, but I was not always her. And that's one of the things I'm gonna share with the people that I'm speaking with, but I was truly that student that I wasn't a troublemaker, but I wasn't one that was academically sound. But I
Yeah.
will say this one thing. Um, this conversation is bringing something up in my head.
Okay.
Um, when I was in high school, we had the cheerleaders. I didn't want to be a cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a teacher and worked with her and developed the pep squad myself and one of my friends. And so when I think about that, I'm like, wow, I was even developing things for women or young ladies back then. But it didn't even it literally just came to my mind right now. Like, dang, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was a pseudo leader then, but I didn't, as I talk about this in the book, I talk about like, do you know your own strength? And I quote Whitney, like, I didn't know my own strength.
Mm.
And I really did not know my own strength until I started Safe Spaces for Black Women.
Yeah.
And I saw, dang it, girl, you're like Oprah right now.
Well, thank
Everybody
you.
cry when they come to the couch.
They do. It does happen. It is. I'm glad you. Hey, That's what this is me standing in my work. This is me
Yes,
doing.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But when I see women wanting this
Mm.
the way that they want it and asking me when's the next event,
Yeah.
that lets me know, this is what I was born to do.
That's right.
Disrupt this system and make it safe space for Black women.
Yes. 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 Yes, 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 yes. There is one last thing that I do. Actually, two is just really quick. One last thing,
It's
two
okay.
last things that I do.
I'm here.
And the first is, as the Calm Coach, I am a meditation guide. So I want you to take a moment to get comfortable in your body. You can close your eyes if you'd like to. And we're just going to take 3 deep breaths together. And after your 3rd deep breath, I want you to visualize talking to your 16-year-old self.
Mm.
What do you say to her?
Girl, stop talking to that boy and go to class and do your homework.
Mm,
And then I tell her, whatever path you get on, know that it's going to lead to your success. But that does not mean that you continue to make reckless decisions.
Yes. And take another big, deep breath in and a long breath out. Now I want you to imagine at the very, very end, we don't know when, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as a disruptor. I want to be remembered as a retired party girl that still knows how to have a good time. And this is in no order. This is just as it comes to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be remembered as a mom that advocated for her daughters the way she wanted to be advocated for. A wife that goes hard in the paint for her husband. And because I watched Girlfriends, girl, you got me just over here just flowing. I love this. As an authoress, you know, my girl from Girlfriends, for those of y'all that don't know, it's a show about Black women.
Mm-hmm.
As an authoress that laid it on the line for Black women.
Yes. All right, one more deep breath in. Long breath out. And blink open your eyes when you are ready.
Oh my God, girl.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes. The last thing I want to share with you, I have to just grab it real fast because you know my PA, she on break today. So just give me 1 second to
Okay.
grab something. I'll be right back. So in the spirit of authoring new things and birthing new things into the world, I am in the process of developing an affirmation deck of affirmations that I have used, that I have shared with others. And you're actually going to be the first person to hear one of these affirmations. So, what I'm doing on the podcast now is I'm pulling one of the cards from my deck for each guest. And these are, I'm calling them positive vibrations. So, the intention is to bring positive vibration. So, I'm just going to pull one of these cards for you and share the affirmation that comes up from that. Okay. So this is the back of the card, and the message on the card,
Pretty.
thank you, is the sky is not the limit. The only limit is your belief that there is a stopping point to your capacity for greatness. So recognize that the sky is not the limit.
That's on point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my dear friend, girl, this has been such a pleasure for me to be able to sit down with you, to hear a little bit of your story, to learn a little bit about this phenomenal book, this resource, this tool, this guide that you're putting out, has been put out, I should say, into the world. So before we wrap, I want to give you the space to let folks know how they can keep up with you, where they can find you out in these social media, internet streets, and any special events or anything that you have coming up in the next couple of months. Let us know, and also remind us how to find your book.
For sure. So my Instagram is Equity with Alicia, Alicia. That is my Instagram because that's just who I'm all about equity. If you want to know more about where I will be, my website is my first name, which is Alicia, and my middle name, Nicole, NICOLE.org. AliciaNicole.org. That's where you can find me. Or the same website is filtered into another website, which is safespacesforblackwomen.org, not .com. That's another organization.
Okay.
And they've disbanded.
Oh,
Go figure.
You want to make sure we send people to the right place. .org,
yes,
y'all.
.org.
Yes.
I'm .org for life, y'all. .org.
Okay.
And for my book, I will be at I received an invitation. I don't know if this will be out in time though, but on November the 11th, if it is, I will be at Malik's at the Lamert Park Book Fair. Yeah, they sent me an
Okay.
email asking me if I wanted to be a vendor. So I'm like, yeah, thanks. So I'll be there. I will have a limited amount of books on hand,
Okay.
but I will have the opportunity for you to purchase books and in a way that I can sign them and then ship them to you. So that's that. And then if you want to just buy my book, it's on my website
Okay.
/book. So alicianicole.org/book. That's where you can see 3 retailers because I didn't want to put 40,000 retailers on my book. I picked
Right.
3. I
Three
picked
is
3
three
and
is a
called
good
it a
start. Yeah.
day. And so yes, I hope you purchase the book. And I will say this, the book is not just for Black women.
Okay.
The book is for everyone because it is of the utmost importance that individuals know what they are doing to Black women in the workplace.
Mm,
This goes beyond the ERGs, the BRGs, or the business relation groups,
mhm,
employee relation groups. This goes beyond setting those up. This is
mm,
about really getting to the root of the problem, which is white supremacy and certain thought processes that people have about Black women and the role they play at work,
mm.
period. So yeah, the book is for everyone. And I hope you check it out and DM me and tell me your thoughts if you hate it, if you love it, if you're indifferent. I'm a big girl, I can handle it.
Hey, hey, I'm glad you said that, that it's a resource for everyone so that
Hmm.
everyone can be made aware and to learn better ways and methods and if nothing else, understand the value of safe spaces for Black women in the
Yes.
workplace, in every space, but specifically in the workplace. So,
Mhm.
well, I appreciate you, Alicia. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
your time, for the work that you're doing, for the movement that you're creating. I just got to go to one little event, and I say little meaning on the spectrum of all the things that you're doing right now. I got to
Thank
go to
you.
one experience, and I am sold. I am a fan, I am a supporter, and
Oh,
I will
thank
make
you.
sure that people know how to find you. So I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
we'll be
Oh, yeah, go
having
ahead.
more next year.
Yes, we'll be
And
having more next year.
yes, I think it'll be in February.
Okay.
So just hold tight. It'll still be intimate though. So when
Okay.
I put the tickets out,
Grab them. Don't
yeah.
hesitate because you
Mhm.
don't want to miss out.